All right, good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Africa. Once again, welcome to the big story on Daybreak Live right here on Dominion Television, where we go beyond the headlines to interrogate the forces shaping our world. I'm your host, Samson Balogun, and today we confront a story that is as spiritual as it is historical, a story of identity, resistance, and reclamation. Sacred traditions, stolen souls, the impact of religious imperialism on Africa. For centuries, African societies flourished with deeply rooted spiritual systems, beliefs that guided governance, justice, medicine, art, and community life. But with colonization came missionaries, doctrines, and dogmas that dismissed African cosmology as backward or demonic. Today, millions of Africans practice religions imported during colonial conquest. But at what cost? Have we lost more than we gained? What becomes of a continent when its sacred traditions are demonized? Its central wisdom erased and its soul outsourced. This morning, we ask the hard questions. Was religion used as a tool of mental and cultural domination? What is the link between religious imperialism and modern African identity crisis? And is this age of decolonization, can Africa reclaim its spiritual sovereignty? We are joined by a thought leader, historian, cultural custodian, and everyday person that talks about religion, traditions, and who is examining the impact of spiritual colonization on our heritage, identity, and future. Welcome once again. This is the big story on Daybreak Live on Dominion Television. I won't be doing this alone today, of course you know that. I have with me in the studio a professor, Professor Olumoyiwa Olusesan Familusi. He is a professor of social ethics and sociology of religion. The head of Department of Religious Studies, University of Ibadan. Good to have you in the studio, sir.
Good morning. Thank you.
Now, who ask the questions that so many people don't want to answer? As I always say on this show, we are going to ask the hard questions, and we want to make sense of things that has eluded so many Nigerians, especially people who are not students of history and people who were not there when these things happened. Good morning to you once again.
Good morning.
Now, Professor, let's begin with some clarity. How would you define religious imperialism, particularly within the African context?
Thank you. Well, I will struggle as humanly possible to be objective. Let me start on this premise. The term religious imperialism, is it an attack or human construction? Well, let me say simply, religious imperialism could be understood as an attempt to superimpose a particular religion or some religions on an existing religion, coming with the mind of a superiority complex. You know, we talk in terms of inferiority complex. There is also superiority complex. Jingoism, sophinism. You are nothing. We are the real thing.
And you must admit what we are brought to you.
So that is my own idea of it. But before we go further, looking at it, maybe you say ask me later. I may ask myself and I may want to ask you whether these foreign religions have brought any benefit to us.
We are still coming to that.
Yeah, that is why I don't want to be too fast.
We'll come to that because I have some questions that really has a lot to do with that. What benefit has it brought, and how does it align with the African culture? We'll come to it. But then, to what extent was religion used as a tool of colonial control in Africa, and how was it interwoven into political and economic conquest?
Yes, there is this school of thought that holds that, maybe Christianity in particular, that Christian missionaries came alongside colonial masters. I said a school of thought. And in that case, the sword was on the right hand to oppress, the Bible on the left hand to pacify. Therefore, some people will believe that Christianity,
carrot and stick approach.
yes, Christianity is nothing but an addendum of colonial imperialism.
Some people consider it to be, what we call another trade of slave trade in disguise.
Somehow,
Modern day slavery.
yes, but sometimes we willingly surrender ourselves as Africans to be enslaved.
How so?
In so many ways. So many names have been changed. Ogunyinka has become Oluwayinka. And even sometimes when some names are changed, one feels sorry and worried.
Lost identity.
Lost identity and bastardization of the original concept. For instance, if your name is Oderin-Law, so to say, or Ogunin-Law, now you want to change it, or the Oluwarin-Law, where is God going to? Oguntoyinbo, Oluwatoyinbo.
So there are questions of how much sense do these names make after it has been changed?
In fact, some of them don't make any sense. They only bring in senselessness. And even when names are changed, do attitudes of the changers change? And when we have gone off track, we begin to misbehave. We'll be neither here nor there. So many things. Dressing habit, eating habit. Of course, early scholars described Africa as a dark continent. They never thought we were humans. Perhaps they thought we were monkeys. A funny story was told of somebody who traveled abroad and maybe he met those who thought Africans were monkeys. And they were asking him the whereabouts, so to say, of his tail. Where's your tail? Have you caught it? Of course, monkey must have
a tail.
Yes, that is the extent. Or that was the extent of the idea they had. Their impression, their opinion about Africa, thinking that nothing good can come out of Africa.
Now, some people push some of these blames to a revered scholar who, by the name Ajayi Crowther, in terms of when he translated the Bible into Yoruba. Some names were wrongly, according to what I have heard, were wrongly interpreted. Now, are you of the same school of thought that some names were wrongly interpreted, especially the Eshu being called Satan?
Yes, you are right. Eshu, in the Yoruba context, is not the Satan.
Some categorize him as the diabolical messenger of God.
It's a messenger of God. Trickish, perhaps diabolical. But it's different from Satan. There is a book written by a young scholar in the University of Ibadan. Eshu is not Satan. Now, to the African, Eshu serve the same purpose as Ogun, Sango, and other divinities. We don't normally say small gods, but academically speaking, they are divinities who are messengers of Olodumare. Therefore, certain things must be referred to them for attention. Why big things are directed to God
himself.
In governance, there are certain things that World Councillor will handle, even without the knowledge of the chairman of the local government. There are certain things that will be handled by by commissioners without the knowledge of the governor. And when the matter is getting out of hand, I think I cannot go beyond this. Let the Excellency
take care of
it. The same thing in medicine. Sometimes minor headache, self-medication. When the matter is getting out of hand, visit a clinic. A clinic will say, well, we can no longer handle it. Go to
hospital.
a very big hospital. UCH cannot handle it. Go to London for treatment and something like. So that is the position of all this. And that idea of Esu, which now understood as the one, so to say, that tempted Jesus. An African scholar will disagree. He is a messenger of Olodumare. He could be tricky, as we said, but there are roles he plays for those who believe in that up to now. For instance, in its characteristic, it could be this, it could be that. A story was told of how Esu told two friends to pray that they will not fight, not quarrel, fight. And they said, no, we will never fight. We are so close. Now Esu went and made a cap. This side of the cap, red. This side of the cap, black. And there was a gathering of people. So Esu passed through the midst of the people. First, unfortunately, one of the friends was on this side, the other was on the other side. And I said, my friend, did you see a short man wearing a black cap? The friend said, no, I saw a short man, but he was wearing a red cap. And an argument ensued. They fought, and then Esu came out. I was the one. I told you. This red, this cap. So that is how Esu could be. As, in fact, it's an enigma.
Now, some religions would want to write the African God with a small g, while the believed God for other religions with a capital G. Yes. What's your take on that?
Yes, I've said something that all the small gods, so to say, are called divinities, messengers of God. In religions, talking about the three major religions in Nigeria. Islam, traditional religion, and Christianity. Central to them is the belief in the Almighty God with capital G. So, Christian missionaries or Muslim missionaries did not introduce the idea of God to us. That idea had been there before those religions.
So there was a belief system even before that religions were reported.
Yes. And it's the same God, perhaps different approaches by different religions. So the small g could be allowed, but ideally no scholar will refer to them as gods. They are God's messengers. For instance, when we were growing up, they would say Ogun, the god of iron. Sango, god of thunder or something like that. Sometimes I would say, if a place is electrified, maybe behind it is Sango that provides the light. Knowledge. I mean, Ifa, repository of knowledge. So, in fact, we were taught that they are ministers of God. I mean, ministers of God with different portfolios. So, anything written small g could be allowed, but not the same thing as the God that the Africans worship. So, ideally, we will argue that there is no difference between the God of Christianity and the God of traditional religion, also the God of Islam.
Okay, now, can we say religion came to Africa before colonialism, or was it the real shift in the type and power structure of religion introduced by colonizers? Now, did it come before colonization? Or will we say, while they were coming, they also brought it together, and then that was a way of bringing the African people to submit to the imported religion?
Yes. Of course, Islam came earlier than Christianity. And there were several attempts to plant Christianity in Africa, especially in Nigeria. but 2 or 3 attempts failed.
Failed.
But there was no success until 1842, when it was successfully planted. But where it was coming from, especially Christianity, there was no way it could sever, that is Christianity, its relationship with the government. And that is why we know that between religion and politics, there is a deep line of interaction. And that is why, as I said when I started, that some people hate colonialism with passion, or they are opposed to Christianity with the mind that Christian missionaries partnered with colonial masters to colonize us.
Okay, now let's talk about conflict. As religion imperialism led to an internal conflict within Africans between their adopted faith and their cultural roots at the point when these imported religions were brought on board.
Yes. When foreign religions came, there was an attempt, of course, it was greatly successful, to demonize Africa. So many people were forced to throw away their objects. And a story was told of a priest who encouraged his converts to throw away all their traditional objects. And as they were throwing them away, they wanted to burn them. And the man saw something that fascinated him. Pick it. And his castle caught fire. So many things we have lost in Africa that are preserved in Europe and America.
I saw a picture lately of a young man from Nigeria who hoisted a flag somewhere close to where do I call this? Somewhere close to where artifacts were kept. Now, a museum. And then he was saying all these things were stolen from Africa, return it back to Africa. The bronze from Benin and some other artifacts from the Oyo Empire. Why do you still have them here? Why not repatriate them back to Africa? And then you condemn all these things and say, oh, they are of no good to you. You have to take this religion and then worship this religion. And all of a sudden, you are taking these artifacts to, beautify your rooms, beautify your museums, and then make people come see them. So what's the difference?
That was the strategy they used. Because if somebody wants to capture you or your territory, the first thing is to tell you that there's nothing good in that area. And if we believe, the blame will not be on them, but on us. Like somebody said, I think the fellow is a comedian, he said, these people condemned everything about Africa. They will tell you palm wine is not good. Palm wine is not good, but they gave us dry gin.
So which one is better?
Which one is better? Which one is therapeutic? So you may not take palm wine because it is from Africa, but you might take
dry gin
because
it is imported.
And so many things. Everything. So the mentality is there. When we were growing up, some of us, as poor as we were so concerned about anything being imported. If it is imported, then it is good. That's the idea. Even up till now. Even the food we eat, the one that is natural is considered to be bad. But the one that is artificial, maybe I wouldn't know, very soon there'll be artificial intelligence will come to food processing or something like that. So it is just like that. Just like two friends that are quarreling and a third party wants to intervene. In the process of intervening, the fellow is saying that your friend is bad. Leave him. After leaving him, he and the other fellow, they'll become friends. I read something that it was a joke anyway, that the female lawyer who handled my divorce case is now married to my husband. That is just it. So why we blame them? We also blame ourselves for not believing in what we have as Africans.
Now, how has imperialism, religious imperialism, affected the society in the areas of festivals, the norms, the African norms? In some places now, the usual yam festival we used to have has been turned to something else. You begin to wonder, is this the Africa we used to know? Is this the Nigeria we used to know? And how is it good in the long term? How is it going to affect the African tradition?
It has affected, things like that have affected African tradition because we no longer have the tradition pure. Sensitive aspect of our culture have been eroded. You mentioned New Yam Festival or other festivals that we mentioned. Under the guise of modernization, so many things were brought into it. And that is why people no longer respect tradition. When tradition was tradition, certain things will not be done. And if those things were done, they will attract consequences. Perhaps the gods, so to say now, maybe are sleeping.
Now, as you mentioned the desecration of the African tradition, probably I should chip this in, which is on the newspaper today, and it's something of concern for people who are lovers of the African tradition. Now, while the late Oba Dr. Sikiru Adetono was to be buried yesterday, according to Islamic rites, the Onisheshis that came on board were chased out of that venue. And then I asked this question. Were they there? These people who chased the Isheshis out of the place, were they there when he became king? Do they know what he went through? I mean, the rites he went through that was prevented from undergoing even when he was to be buried? And what effect is this going to have on the African tradition going forward? How bad is it going to desecrate the African religion?
Well, I said a while ago, things we valued in those days are no longer cherished. What happened was a rape on African tradition. Tradition. The monarch underwent a process before he was made the king. And we now see conflicts of interest between religions. When somebody belongs to two or more religious traditions, that is expected. That means traditional religion no longer pure. And if the fellow is a Christian, the Christianity is no longer pure. And Muslim, the Islam, so to say, is no longer pure. Things like that will continue to happen. A story was told of a monarch in a village who was to live in a place for 3 months before moving to the palace. That aspect was skipped. He only sat on a stool 3 times, each to represent 1 month. And when he got there, he began to misbehave. When people were complaining, why won't this man misbehave? Did he undergo what he was supposed to undergo? Did he perform the right he was supposed to perform? Perhaps there are some monarchs, maybe modern day monarchs, who hardly know anything about tradition.
Even about kingship.
About kingship. In those days, in Yoruba land, the oracle will be consulted. So the fellow chosen by the oracle will be the king.
I think
people are now saying maybe the oracle is now money compliant. So the oracle no longer speaks, but money does. If that is the case, we cannot expect sanity. We cannot expect decorum in terms of our culture.
Now, where would you put government interference in selection of royal fathers in the country?
Yes. As humans, we will do what will benefit us. We could discover that maybe a particular governor is a friend of somebody aspiring to get to the throne. House fly or flies will always pursue somebody who have defecated on his body. So we will always support people we know and probably what we think will benefit from
us
it.
in the long run.
Normally, one would have expected a scenario when Ifa has chosen the king and the name will be submitted to the governor for ratification.
Yeah.
But perhaps there are governors who could ask Ifa oracle to keep short. That is so money factor is equally there.
Okay, now very quickly, let's talk about what we have benefited so far from the imported religions.
Yes.
And then compared and juxtaposed with what used to be in Africa. What's the difference?
Yes. You know, that was where I almost started from. It will be a miscarriage of justice to say that we have not benefited anything from foreign religion. Where we are now, you say it's a product of Western education, which was brought through the instrumentality of foreign religion. So we cannot take that away. Even when we deny it, there are evidences. So many things. So many things have changed. Religion is an agent of development. Is an agent of moral revolution. Is an agent of emancipation. So many things now. We have child rights, women's rights, and some other things that were made possible because we were introduced to, because we were exposed, and we are still exposed to Western education. So that the benefits are many. Of course, in those days, there was a belief that children that died in infancy were emere. Igbo people will call them Ogbanje, Abiku. But you will agree with me that in the present day Nigeria, the rate of infant mortality has reduced because of medical intervention. Some people who shouldn't have been married to each other in those days, but they got married because there was no diagnosis. So AS, marrying AS. SS will come, they will now be blaming the husband's second wife for being instrumental, for being responsible for the torrential death of children. Whereas, if you know you are an AS, it must sink into your consciousness that another AS is not for you. So that's a benefit. And some other things that our fathers in those days didn't have opportunity to explore. They were just doing everything blindly. So those who survived because they were fortunate. But today, as a result of our exposure, as a result of exposure to Western education civilization, which could be traced to the introduction of Christianity and Islam, we will not say we have not benefited anything. We have benefited so many things from that. And maybe on the side of the negative aspects, we have said so many things about that. Rats are no longer crying like rats. Birds are no longer crying like birds.
Okay.
Maybe This was what Chinua Achebe had in mind when he said, things are falling apart. The center cannot hold. All of us, no matter whether we are Christians, whether we are Muslims, there is still an element of our tradition in us. And even whether we are traditionalists, there will be some element of modernization in us.
It's all blended now.
Yes. And of course, it will be a problem because, as some pastors will say, your life will no longer be the same. So our lives, our makeup in terms of culture is no longer the same. For instance, one is a traditionalist. His wife is a Muslim. Or one is a traditionalist. The wife is a Christian. Definitely in that family, they'll be practicing two religions. If you are an obedient wife, there are certain things you will do for your husband as a traditionalist.
Absolutely right.
And the man will also not forget that though I'm a traditionalist, I still have to support my wife during Christmas. In that case, it will be difficult to even locate where some people belong to.
There will be identity crisis.
Identity crisis. And that is just the main thing. Even the names will be.
Now,
the dresses we put on.
Very quickly before we go, how backward would Africa and Africans have been if these religions were not imported? And then not forgetting that medicine was being practiced in Africa as far back as the 3000 BC, which combined science, religion, and magic as at that time. So, would Africa have remained the same, or would Africa have developed on its own without the interference of foreign religion?
Evidently, the coming of these foreign religions was beneficial. I will not agree that we would have been where we are today if Christianity and Islam had not come. Of course, there is African medicine, even up to now. But it is being improved upon as a result of exposure to Western medicine. So the benefits are immense. We cannot deceive ourselves. The only thing we need is to be sensible enough not to throw everything pertaining to Africa away. We have to be sensitive. And in some of my publications, maybe on culture, this and that, there was a paper I wrote on globalization and African culture. And I saw the benefit aspect of globalization. I saw the negative aspect. I concluded by saying, let us pick the aspects that are beneficial and jettison the aspects that are dangerous. That is it. So we can no longer, okay, if we are saying there is nothing good in them, then why are we here? How did this come into being? We can go to villages and see the houses that were built many years ago and compare them with the ones we built now. Our development is dynamic, it's not static. We keep improving. And that is the point.
So there are claims and insinuations that African culture can be preserved. Some people are already doing that. But then what are the other ways to make sure that this culture do not die? And of course, some are even finding it difficult to transfer their knowledge to their children, especially in terms of language, the culture, the ethics, the Omoluabi ethics, as the Yorubas will call it. And it's becoming a problem. And if these knowledge are not successfully passed down across the line, I mean, it will become a problem in the next few years.
Yes, the problem is here with us. Now, the parents that are supposed to transmit culture, how cultured are they? You said something in your language. I don't know, you are likely to be a Yoruba man. How much of Yoruba can you speak without adding as in? Now, the part of Yoruba you come from will also determine the dialect you speak or you are supposed to speak. How much of the dialect can you speak? And again, we are so funny that we underrate ourselves. Somebody told me, this is a public domain, that anytime I speak, people will know where I come from. I say, yes, because I'm not a bastard. I'm an Ijesa man. So you don't expect me to be speaking like somebody born in America. I'm proud of that. So know me as Baba Ijesa. Now, yesterday I posted something. My daughter, I said on Facebook status, WhatsApp status, Iya Ijesa. And somebody now asked, does he speak Ijesa dialect? How? When even from day one, it is come here, go this way, this and that. But I became fascinated to a student in UI. She's from Ekiti, born in Ibadan, but speaks the Ekiti dialect fluently. I said, yes, my regards to your dad. So all these things are there. So there are different ways. How can we preserve our culture when nobody even wants to live in Africa? Can we blame those who are migrating through legal or illegal means? Even at age 80, over 80, Nigerians are still migrating. So how are we going to have the opportunity to preserve our culture? And one thing again, when last did many people travel to their hometown?
Just like they used to do for
Christmas in
for
those
New
days.
Year.
I said, there are so many students have had interaction with. Where are you from? So you don't know your hometown. My mom said. So you don't know your hometown? When last did you go? Those who are fortunate to be going once in a while, maybe that will be when the grandfather died. Provided they will be taken there. Because they will say, all those women in the village. Are there no women in cities?
All right, thank you, Professor, for joining us in the studio this morning. I feel like this conversation has not ended, and we'll still have you on a more elaborate show to talk about the African culture and tradition. Thank you for joining us in the studio.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, Olumuyiwa Olusesanfamilusi is a professor of social ethics and the sociology of religion at Department of Religious Studies, University of Ibadan. We say very thank you for joining us. All right, now it is time to go. Africa's soul is not lost, only buried beneath centuries of silence and shame. But now, the conversation is shifting. The drumbeat of rediscovery is sounding. As we wrap up the big story for today, we challenge you not just to question, but learn, unlearn, and reimagine. What does freedom truly mean if it doesn't include spiritual freedom? What is the future of people disconnected from their past? Thank you for staying with us. Join us again tomorrow, same time, same station, on The Big Story. Of course, Daybreak Live continues for another compelling edition of The Big Story on Daybreak Live. I am Samson Balogun.